In the heart of a continent brimming with potential, a question hangs heavy in the air. A question that leaders have whispered in corridors and citizens have shouted in the streets. It is a question of promise, of purpose, and of power. We were told of a united Africa, a beacon of strength and solidarity, a force for peace and prosperity for all its people. This was the dream of the African Union, a dream of a continent taking its destiny into its own hands. Yet, as we look around us, from the bustling markets of the West to the serene landscapes of the East, we see a different reality. We see a continent grappling with challenges that seem to grow more complex with each passing day. We see nations in turmoil, communities in crisis, and a people whose hopes have been deferred time and time again. The promise of unity feels distant, a faint echo in a storm of conflict and instability. The vision of a self-reliant Africa seems to fade with every foreign-funded project, with every decision made in a boardroom far from the realities of the people it is meant to serve. This is not the Africa that was promised. This is not the Africa that its people deserve. The time has come to ask the hard questions, to confront the uncomfortable truths, and to demand a new way forward. We must examine the foundations of our institutions, the sincerity of our leaders, and the true meaning of African unity. The future of a continent depends on it. The lives of millions hang in the balance. This is not a conversation for the faint of heart, but it is a conversation that we can no longer afford to ignore. The silence has been broken, and the world is listening. What will we say? The African Union, born from the ashes of the Organization of African Unity, was meant to be different. It was envisioned as a more proactive, more integrated, and more effective body, one that could not only mediate disputes, but also prevent them. It was to be an institution that would champion the cause of the African people, that would protect their sovereignty, and that would pave the way for a new era of development and self-determination. The architects of the AU dreamed of a continent where African solutions would be found for African problems, where the wisdom of the elders would be combined with the energy of the youth to create a brighter future. They spoke of a new dawn for Africa, a time when the continent would finally shed the shackles of its colonial past and take its rightful place on the world stage. They promised a union that would be more than just a collection of states, but a true community of people bound together by a shared history and a common destiny. They envisioned a continent where trade would flow freely, where borders would be bridges, not barriers, and where the wealth of the land would be used to enrich the lives of its people. They painted a picture of an Africa at peace with itself, a continent united in its diversity, and a people proud of their heritage. This was the vision that was sold to the African people. This was the hope that was kindled in their hearts. But a vision without action is just a dream, and a promise without fulfillment is a betrayal. The reality of the African Union has been a far cry from its noble aspirations. Time and time again, when the continent has been faced with a crisis, the AU has been found wanting. When the flames of conflict erupted in Libya, the AU stood by as foreign powers intervened, leaving a trail of chaos and destruction in their wake. When civil war tore through Sudan, the AU's response was muted, its calls for peace drowned out by the sound of gunfire. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, where millions have perished in a conflict fueled by greed and foreign interests, the AU has been a silent spectator, its resolutions and communiques gathering dust as the body count continues to rise. The list of failures is long and heartbreaking, a testament to an institution that has lost its way. The AU has become a club of leaders, more concerned with protecting their own interests than with protecting the interests of their people. It has become a bureaucracy, bogged down in endless meetings and protocol, disconnected from the urgent realities of the continent. It has become a puppet, its strings pulled by foreign donors who fund its budget and dictate its agenda. The AU has become a symbol of Africa's broken promises, a monument to its unfulfilled potential. It is an institution that has failed to live up to its own ideals, and in doing so has failed the people it was created to serve. The emperor has no clothes, and the people are starting to notice. The hypocrisy of the African Union is perhaps its most glaring failure. The institution is quick to condemn and suspend countries where the military has taken power, citing a commitment to constitutional order and democracy. Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso, Niger, all have felt the wrath of the AU's sanctions and suspensions. Yet, where was this commitment to democracy when leaders were changing constitutions to extend their rule? Where was this concern for the will of the people when elections were being stolen in broad daylight? The AU's selective outrage has exposed its double standards, its willingness to turn a blind eye to the abuses of its own members, while punishing those who dare to challenge the status quo. This hypocrisy has not been lost on the African people, who see the AU for what it is, an institution that is more interested in preserving the power of incumbent leaders than in promoting genuine democracy and good governance. The AU's talk of principles and values rings hollow when its actions tell a different story. It is an institution that has lost its moral compass, that has traded its principles for political expediency. The people are tired of the double standards. They are tired of the hypocrisy. They are tired of being told to believe in a system that does not believe in them. They are demanding consistency. They are demanding fairness. They are demanding an institution that is worthy of their trust. The root of the African Union's paralysis lies in its crippling dependence on foreign funding. Over 60% of the AU's budget is funded by external partners, primarily the European Union and the United States. This financial dependence has created a relationship of dependency, where the AU's agenda is often shaped by the interests of its donors, not by the needs of the African people. It is a classic case of he who pays the piper calls the tune. This reliance on foreign aid has compromised the AU's independence, its ability to act freely and decisively in the best interests of the continent. It has turned the AU into a junior partner in its own affairs, a supplicant at the table of global power. This is not the self-reliant Africa that the founders of the AU envisioned. This is not the Africa that can stand on its own 2 feet and chart its own course. This is an Africa that is still beholden to foreign powers, an Africa that is still struggling to break free from the chains of neocolonialism. The time has come for Africa to fund its own institutions, to take control of its own destiny. The continent has the resources, it has the wealth, it has the human capital to do so. What it has lacked is the political will, the courage to say no to foreign handouts and to build a truly independent and self-sufficient future. The road to true independence will not be easy, but it is a road that Africa must travel if it is to reclaim its dignity and its sovereignty. Into this landscape of disillusionment and despair, a new voice has emerged, a voice that is raw, unfiltered, and unapologetic. It is the voice of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the young leader of Burkina Faso, a man who has dared to speak truth to power, to challenge the sacred cows of African diplomacy. In a speech that has gone viral across the continent, Traoré laid bare the frustrations of a generation, the anger of a people who feel abandoned and betrayed. He spoke of the senseless wars, the forgotten victims, the leaders who have sold their souls for a seat at the table. He questioned the very purpose of the African Union, an institution that sends condolences but not soldiers, that issues statements but not solutions. His words were a thunderclap, a wake-up call to a continent that has been slumbering for too long. He spoke not as a politician, but as a soldier, as a son of the Soil, as a man who has seen the face of war and has grown weary of the empty promises of peace. His speech was a cry from the heart, a plea for a new kind of leadership, a new kind of unity, a new kind of Africa. The impact of Traoré's speech cannot be overstated. It has resonated with millions of Africans who have long felt the same way, but have lacked the platform to express their frustrations. It has given voice to the voiceless. It has empowered the powerless. It has ignited a spark of hope in the hearts of those who had all but given up. Traoré's words have become a rallying cry for a new generation of Africans who are tired of the old ways, who are demanding a new deal. They are a generation that is connected, informed, and unafraid to speak their minds. They are a generation that is not willing to wait for permission to build the Africa of their dreams. They are a generation that is ready to take matters into their own hands, to forge their own alliances, to create their own solutions. Traoré's speech was more than just a critique of the African Union. It was a declaration of independence, a statement of intent, a manifesto for a new Africa. It was a sign that the times are changing, that the old guard is losing its grip, and that a new era is dawning on the continent. The winds of change are blowing across Africa, and they are blowing with the force of a hurricane. The reaction to Traoré's speech has been a mix of admiration and apprehension. For many, he is a hero, a modern-day Sankara, a leader who is not afraid to speak truth to power, no matter the consequences. They see in him the embodiment of a new kind of leadership, one that is rooted in the needs of the people, not in the protocols of diplomacy. They see in him a symbol of hope, a sign that a better future is possible. But for others, he is a threat, a destabilizing force, a man who is challenging the established order. They fear that his words will incite rebellion, that his actions will lead to chaos, that his vision of a new Africa will come at a terrible price. They see him as a populist, a demagogue, a man who is playing with fire. The truth, as always, probably lies somewhere in between. Traoré is a complex figure, a product of his time, a reflection of the deep-seated frustrations of a continent in crisis. He is a man who has been thrust into the spotlight, a leader who is still finding his way. Whether he will be a force for good or for ill remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: he has changed the conversation, he has shaken the foundations of the old order, and he has forced Africa to look at itself in the mirror. The rise of leaders like Traoré is a symptom of a deeper malaise, a sign that the old models of governance are no longer working. The post-colonial state in Africa has largely failed to deliver on its promises of development, security, and prosperity. It has been plagued by corruption, mismanagement, and a lack of vision. It has been a tool of extraction, a means for a small elite to enrich themselves at the expense of the majority. The people have lost faith in their leaders, in their institutions, in the very idea of the state. They are looking for alternatives, for new ways of organizing themselves, for new forms of leadership. This is the context in which military coups are making a comeback, not as a solution, but as a desperate attempt to break the cycle of failure. The soldiers who are taking power are not necessarily saviors, but they are seen as a lesser evil, as a chance for a fresh start. They are a reflection of the people's deep-seated desire for change, for a new beginning. They are a sign that the old order is crumbling and that something new is struggling to be born. The challenges facing Africa are immense, but so is its potential. This is a continent of immense natural wealth, of a young and vibrant population, of a rich and diverse culture. It is a continent that has the potential to become a global powerhouse, a leader in innovation, a model of sustainable development. But to unlock this potential, Africa must first overcome the obstacles that are holding it back. It must confront the legacy of colonialism, the scourge of corruption, the curse of conflict. It must build strong and accountable institutions. It must invest in its people. It must create an environment where entrepreneurship can flourish. It must find a new model of development, one that is inclusive, sustainable, and driven by the needs of the people. This is not a task for governments alone. It is a task for all Africans, for the diaspora, for the friends of Africa around the world. It is a task that will require courage, creativity, and a shared sense of purpose. It is a task that will require us to believe in the possibility of a new Africa, an Africa that is at peace with itself, an Africa that is prosperous, an Africa that is united. What are your thoughts on the future of African unity? Do you believe the African Union can be reformed, or is it time for a new beginning? Share your views in the comments below, and let's start a conversation. Your voice matters. Let's build a community of engaged citizens who are committed to shaping the future of the continent. Don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends. The more people who are aware of the challenges and opportunities facing Africa, the greater the chance for meaningful change. Let's make this a movement, not just a moment. In the Sahel, a region that has been at the epicenter of the continent's security crisis, a new alliance is taking shape, an alliance that is a direct challenge to the authority of the African Union. The Alliance of Sahel States, AES, formed by Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, is a bold experiment in a new kind of regional cooperation. It is an alliance that is born out of necessity, out of a shared sense of abandonment, out of a common desire to take control of their own security. These three countries, all of which have been suspended from the African Union, have decided to go it alone, to forge their own path, to create their own destiny. They have rejected the old ways of doing things, the endless meetings, the empty resolutions, the foreign-led interventions that have failed to bring peace and stability to their region. They are building a new model of security cooperation, one that is led by Africans, for Africans. They are pooling their resources, sharing their intelligence, and coordinating their military operations. They are taking the fight to the terrorists, and they are doing it on their own terms. The Alliance of Sahel States is more than just a military alliance. It is a political statement. It is a declaration that the Sahel will no longer be a playground for foreign powers, a laboratory for their counter-terrorism experiments. It is a rejection of the neocolonial mindset that has for too long treated Africa as a passive recipient of aid and advice. The leaders of the AES are demanding respect. They are demanding to be treated as equal partners. They are demanding the right to determine their own future. They have severed their military ties with France, the former colonial power, and have expelled its troops from their soil. They are building new partnerships with other countries, partnerships that are based on mutual respect and shared interests. They are rewriting the rules of the game, and they are doing it with a sense of urgency and determination that has been sorely lacking in the corridors of the African Union. The AES is a sign that a new wind is blowing through the Sahel, a wind of change, a wind of defiance, a wind of hope. The formation of the Alliance of Sahel States has sent shockwaves across the continent and beyond. It has been hailed by some as a courageous act of self-determination, a sign that Africa is finally waking up to its own power. It has been condemned by others as a reckless gamble, a move that will further destabilize an already fragile region. The truth is that it is too early to say what the long-term consequences of the AES will be. It is an experiment, a work in progress, a leap of faith. It could be the beginning of a new era of African-led security cooperation, a model that could be replicated in other parts of the continent. Or it could be a flash in the pan, a short-lived alliance that will collapse under the weight of its own internal contradictions and external pressures. What is clear is that the AES has changed the geopolitical landscape of the Sahel, and that it has forced the international community to rethink its approach to the region. It is a reminder that Africa is not a monolith, that it is a continent of diverse and dynamic actors who are capable of shaping their own destiny. The emergence of the Alliance of Sahel States raises a fundamental question about the future of African unity. Is the African Union still relevant in a world where new, regional alliances are taking shape, where countries are forging their own paths, where the old models of cooperation are being challenged? Can the AU reform itself? Can it become the institution that Africa needs it to be? Or is it destined to become a relic of the past, a symbol of a bygone era of Pan-African idealism? These are not easy questions, and there are no simple answers. The future of African unity will depend on the choices that Africans themselves make in the coming years. It will depend on their ability to build institutions that are accountable, effective, and responsive to the needs of the people. It will depend on their ability to overcome their divisions, to forge a common sense of purpose, to build a future that is worthy of their aspirations. The road ahead will be long and difficult, but it is a road that Africa must travel if it is to realize its full potential. The challenges facing the Alliance of Sahel States are formidable. The three countries are among the poorest in the world, with weak economies, fragile institutions, and a population that has been ravaged by conflict and poverty. They are facing a determined and well-funded terrorist insurgency that has spread across the region, sowing death and destruction in its wake. They are also facing a hostile international environment, with many Western powers viewing their alliance with suspicion and hostility. The AES will need more than just military force to succeed. It will need to win the hearts and minds of its people, to provide them with security, services, and a sense of hope. It will need to build a new social contract, one that is based on trust, justice, and inclusion. It will need to find a way to address the root causes of the conflict, the poverty, the marginalization, the lack of opportunity that have fueled the insurgency. This is a monumental task, one that will require a new kind of leadership, a new kind of vision, a new kind of commitment. The odds are stacked against them, but the leaders of the AES are determined to prove their doubters wrong. As Africa stands at a crossroads, three possible paths to the future of its power and unity emerge from the current turmoil. The first path is one of reform from within, a path that seeks to salvage the African Union by transforming it from the inside out. This would require a radical overhaul of the institution, a deep structural change that would address its fundamental weaknesses. It would mean reducing its dependence on foreign funding, empowering its regional security councils, and decentralizing its power. It would mean making the AU more accountable to the African people, not just to its member states. It would mean turning the AU into a truly Pan-African institution, one that is capable of defending the interests of the continent and promoting its development. This is the path of gradual change, of incremental reform, of working within the existing system to make it better. It is a path that is favored by many of the continent's established leaders, who are wary of radical change and who believe that the AU, for all its flaws, is still the best hope for African unity. The second path is one of replacement from the outside, a path that sees the future of African unity in the emergence of new continental alliances, like the Alliance of Sahel States. This is a path that is being forged by a new generation of leaders who have lost faith in the African Union and who are determined to build something new in its place. They believe that the AU is beyond reform, that it is a moribund institution that is incapable of meeting the challenges of the 21st century. They are building new alliances that are based on shared values, common interests, and a willingness to act decisively. They are creating a new architecture of African power, one that is more flexible, more dynamic, and more responsive to the needs of the people. This is the path of radical change, of creative destruction, of building a new order on the ashes of the old. It is a path that is fraught with risk, but it is also a path that is full of promise. It is a path that could lead to a more fragmented Africa, or it could lead to a more resilient and self-reliant continent. The third path is the most radical of all. It is the path of total revolution, a path that calls for a fundamental reset of the very idea of African unity. This is a path that is being advocated by grassroots movements, by community activists, by intellectuals and artists who believe that true unity cannot be imposed from above but must be built from the ground up. They argue that the nation-state in Africa is a colonial construct that has failed to create a sense of shared identity and purpose. They call for a new kind of Pan-Africanism, one that is based on the solidarity of peoples, not the alliance of states. They envision a future where communities are empowered, where local cultures are celebrated, and where people are connected by a shared sense of humanity. This is the path of deep transformation, of a new consciousness, of a spiritual and cultural revolution. It is a path that is long and arduous, but it is a path that could lead to a more just, a more peaceful, and a more harmonious Africa. Which of these paths will Africa choose? The answer is not yet clear. The continent is in a state of flux, a period of profound change and uncertainty. The old certainties are gone, and the future is up for grabs. It's a time of great peril, but it is also a time of great opportunity. It is a time for Africans to ask themselves some fundamental questions about who they are, what they want, and where they are going. It is a time for them to reclaim their agency, to take control of their own narrative, to write their own history. The future of Africa will not be decided in the corridors of power in Brussels or Washington, but in the villages and cities of the continent, in the hearts and minds of its people. It will be decided by the choices that they make, by the actions that they take, by the courage that they show. The world is watching, but more importantly, Africa is watching itself. The journey ahead will be long and arduous, but it is a journey that Africa must undertake. The continent cannot afford to wait for an institution that no longer serves its needs. It cannot afford to be a passive spectator in its own destiny. It is time for Africa to rise, to take its rightful place in the world, to build a future that is worthy of its children. The task is immense, but the spirit of the African people is stronger. It is a spirit of resilience, of creativity, of hope. It is a spirit that has survived centuries of oppression, of exploitation, of neglect. It is a spirit that is now being rekindled, a spirit that is ready to build a new Africa, an Africa that is proud, prosperous, and free. The dawn is breaking, and a new day is coming. The question is not whether Africa will rise, but how it will rise, and what kind of Africa it will become. The answer to that question lies in the hands of the African people themselves. If this conversation resonated with you, if you believe in the potential of a new Africa, then I urge you to join our community. Subscribe to this channel for more in-depth analysis and discussions on the future of the continent. Share this video with your network, and let's amplify these voices of change. Together, we can build a global movement of people who are committed to supporting Africa's journey towards a brighter future. Click the notification bell so you don't miss our next video. The time for waiting is over. The time for action is now. Let's be the change we want to see in the world. Let's build the Africa of our dreams together.